Once upon a time, in a lively town, there lived a girl named Mma. She was the only child and only daughter of her wealthy parents, and they pampered her endlessly. Mma had never worked a day in her life, as everything she wanted was handed to her on a silver platter. She grew up believing that the world revolves around her. Her parents called her their princess and made sure she had the finest clothes, the best education, and the most luxurious things. Mma, however, was arrogant and rude to anyone who did not treat her like royalty. She was looked down on people who worked hard for a living, thinking she was too special for such things. As Mma grew older, she met a handsome man named Kosi. He came from a wealthy family too, but he was a proud man who believed that wealth entitled him to the life of comfort without any effort. He didn't love Mma. He was more interested in her family's fortune and social standard. After dating her for 5 years, Kosi true nature became apparent. While Mma's spoiled nature had charmed him initially, he grew increasingly irritated by her unwillingness to bend to his demands. Kosi was traditional and expected his wife to fulfill her duties, regardless of her social status. He proposed not out of love but out of desire to maintain a powerful family image. Mma's parents were thrilled that their princess would marry such a wealthy man, and she accepted, drawn more by the idea of a lavish lifestyle than genuine affection. Their wedding was grand, attended by all the town's wealthiest people. Mma looked stunning, basking in the attention. Why Kosi wore a smirk of entitlement. After the wedding, Mma moved into Kosi's mansion. At first, things seemed perfect. Mma decorated the house with the most expensive furniture and filled her wardrobe with designer clothes. But there was one thing Mma didn't care for at all: cooking. Kosi, who looked simple, liked home cooked meals, took a domineering stance. You need to cook for me, he demanded one evening, his voice laced with impatience. I'm a traditional man, and a wife's duty is to prepare meals for her husband, no matter how wealthy we are. Mma crossed her arms. I was not born to cook for any man. I am not your slave. Kosi's face turned red with anger. You think this is a joke? If you're too busy for that, then what are you even good for? I didn't marry you for your cooking skills. But this is unacceptable. You should be grateful for this life. Mma scoffed, rolling her eyes. I'm not stepping foot into the kitchen. If you want to eat, hire a chef or get takeaway. I'm not your servant. Kosi's temper flared. How dare you talk to me like that? A good wife prepares meal for her husband. You should know your place. Despite his anger, Kosi decided to give Mma some time to adjust. For the next few weeks, they relied on takeaway. But Kosi quickly grew fed up. He longed for a home cooked meal and began asking Mma again, hoping she might change her mind. Each time he asked, her responses became increasingly disrespectful. I'm not cooking anything, she would say. If you want food, make it yourself. Kosi's frustration boiled over and he snapped, I deserve better than this. You are so spoiled. It's pathetic. You think you are too good to cook for me? Mma, unfazed by her anger. If you don't like it, tough luck. I'm not changing for anyone. That night, Kosi made a decision. The next morning, he packed his bags and left Mma. When she woke up and found him gone, she was surprised. to see the divorce paper he had left behind. How could Kosi leave her? How could anyone dare to leave her? Mma ran to her parents, crying and telling them that Kosi didn't love her and wanted a divorce. Her parents, who had always spoiled her, comforted her and assured her that it wasn't her fault. Mma's father, furious that his daughter has been treated so poorly, threatened Kosi, demanding he takes Mma back. But Kosi refused to relent. Enough of this nonsense. I'm done with her, he shouted. I don't want to be tied to someone who won't even lift a finger to care for me. After much pressure, Mma's father finally relented, telling her to sign the divorce papers. Her parents consoled her, promising she will find someone better. He never loved you the way you deserve, my darling, her mother said. You are too special for him. Mma was devastated. She had lost her husband and her perfect life was starting to crumble. But instead of reflecting on her action, she allowed her parents to convince her that she was the victim. They told her that Kosi didn't appreciate her and they continued to pamper her just as they always had. Mma believed them, convincing herself that Kosi was the one who was wrong. After the divorce, Mma life became a routine of lounging at her parents' mansion, attending lavish parties, and maintaining her appearance. Her friends pitied her, but dared not to say it to her face. They pretended her divorce was no big deal and told her she would find someone better. Ma, still proud and pampered, convinced herself that her next relationship would be flawless. She wasn't the problem. Kosi was. At least, that is what she kept telling herself. Months after her divorce, Mma met Daniel. He was tall, charming, and successful, just like Kosi, but a little more down to earth. He had a calm demeanor that Mma find appealing. Daniel seems to admire her confidence and beauty, and within a few months, they were dating. Unlike Kosi, Daniel didn't pressure Mma to cook or do household chores at the start. He didn't bring it up much, and Mma was relieved. She thought she found the perfect husband, someone who wouldn't ask too much of her. Daniel was patient and kind, and when he proposed to her a year later, she accepted without hesitation. Her parents were thrilled, again believing their princess had found someone worthy of her. The wedding was grand, even more luxurious than her first. Mma's dress sparkled, and the guests marveled at the splendor of the event. She walked down the aisle, convinced this time would be different. Daniel was not cozy, and she was determined to live a perfect life with him. For the first few months of their marriage, things were smooth. Mma was content with Daniel's easygoing nature, and Daniel seems happy to let her do whatever she wanted. But soon, cracks began to show. Daniel, like Kosi, enjoyed home-cooked meals. He wasn't as direct about it at first, but eventually, he asked Mma to make something special for him. Mma, I'm tired of takeaway, he said one evening, sounding exhausted after a long day at work. How about you make my favorite dish tomorrow, Egusi soup? Mma froze. She knew what Egusi soup was. Everyone in town loved it, but she had no idea how to make it. She had never stepped foot in the kitchen for anything other than a glass of water or to check on the staff preparing food. Mma tried to brush it off casually, saying I don't have time to cook, Daniel. You know that. Daniel sighed, but didn't push her. He assured she might not be ready to start cooking yet, given how much she'd been pampered all her life. But the next day, when he called her from work, he mentioned it again. Ma, I've been really tired lately. I would love to come home to a meal you made. Can you please make that egusi soup tonight? Mma panicked. This was the second time he had asked, and this time there was a seriousness in his voice. She didn't want to look bad in front of him, and more importantly, she didn't want her friend to find out that she was on the verge of rolling yet another marriage. If Daniel left her, the gossip blogs would feast on her failure, and her reputation would be tarnished further. So, without thinking, Mma agreed. Okay, I will make the soup. As soon as the call ended, Mma rushed to call her closest friend, Amaka. She was sure Amaka knew how to make egusi soup. Amaka, I'm in trouble. Oh. Daniel wants me to cook egusi soup tonight, but I have no idea how to make it. You have to help me. Amaka was silent for a moment. Then, with an awkward chuckle, she admitted, Mma, I don't know how to cook either. I always have my maid make it. Mma groaned, frustrated. She couldn't believe that even her friends were as clueless as she was. Still, Amaka wanted to help. So, she made up a recipe, hoping it would be close enough. All right, Mma, she began. Just get some ground melon seed, thyme, curry, protein like chicken or beef, eggs, yams, Maggi cubes, salt, and Amaka paused, then added, oh, and since Daniel said he's tired, add some Monster Energy drink to the soup. That will give him a boost. Mma raised an eyebrow. Yeah, Monster Energy drink? Yes, it's supposed to give you energy, right? And if he's tired, it might make him feel better. Mma, desperate and clueless, didn't question it further. She rushed to the market, gathered all the ingredients, ground melon seeds, egusi, thyme, curry, chicken, eggs, and the Monster Energy drink, and hurried back home to start cooking. She had no idea what she was doing, so she threw everything into the pot at once. The melon seeds, the yam, the chicken, and then, as per Amaka's strange advice, she poured in the entire can of Monster Energy drink. The pot bubbled and hissed, and Mma stood over it nervously, unsure if it was supposed to look like that. But there was no time to second guess. Daniel would be home soon, and she needed to have the soup ready. When Daniel finally walked through the door, tired but excited, Mma greeted him with a forced smile. I made your favorite, egusi soup, she said, hoping he wouldn't notice her nervousness. Daniel sat at the table, the bowl of soup placed before him, but the moment the soup was in front of him, he could smell something was off. His bro frowned, but he didn't say anything. He lifted his spoon, took a bite, and immediately spat it out. What? What did you put in this? He asked, in shock. Mma, confused by his reaction, stammered, I I followed the recipe. I used melon seed, spices, chicken, and well, Amaka says since you were tired, I should add Monster Energy drink to boost your energy. Daniel's eyes widened in disbelief. You put Monster Energy drink in egusi soup? Mma nodded, now realized how ridiculous it sounded. Daniel stood up, shaking his head. He couldn't believe what he just heard. He was frustrated, but more than that, he was deeply disappointed. He had hoped that after all this time, Mama might start to care about their life together, about the things that matters to him. Feeling defeated, Daniel called Mma's parents. He explained the situation, hoping they would understand and maybe convinced Mma to take cooking seriously. But when her parents heard the story, they yelled at Daniel instead. How dare you make our daughter cook? She's not your servant. Her father backed. Mma is a princess. You should be thankful she even agreed to try. Daniel was surprised. He hung up the phone, realizing just how deep the problem went. Mma wasn't just unwilling to cook, she believed she was above it, and her parents were encouraging this belief. Tensions between Mma and Daniel grew worse after the Monster Energy drink Egusi soup disaster. Daniel felt humiliated, but he tried to put the incident behind him. Mma, however, was unfazed by it all. She refused to acknowledge her mistake and continued acting like nothing has happened. Her pride wouldn't allow her to admit that she had done anything wrong, and she ignored Daniel's request to take cooking classes or at least try again. In her mind, cooking was beneath her, and she had no intention of changing. Months passed, and Daniel's frustration deepened. He longed for a partner who could share the responsibilities of their home, someone who would put effort into their relationship. He loved Mma, but her stubbornness and refusal to meet him halfway were starting to weigh him down. Despite this, Daniel still held out hope that things could improve. One day, Daniel decided to host a small gathering at their home, a chill and eat party, with three of his closest friends. It was a casual get together where the friends could relax, eat good food, and enjoy each other company. The plan was simple. Each wife would cook a dish and they would all enjoy the meal together. It would be a fun way for the wives to bond while their husband chatted and caught up. One of Daniel's friends, Mark, was the son of the newly elected governor of Rivers State. Mark's wife, Ella, was well known for her elegance and pose, and Mma had always admired her from afar. Mma saw this as her chance to finally elevate her social status and become closer to the wives of influential people. If she could impress Ella, it might open doors for her in society. So when Daniel told Mma about the chill and eat event, she surprisingly agreed to participate. For once, she seems excited about something involving the kitchen. She wasn't excited to cook, of course, but the idea of being seen as a friend of the governor's wife thrilled her. The day of the gathering arrived, and the house was abused with activities. Daniel was hopeful that this event would bring him and Mma closer. He had gently suggested that Mma could prepare a simple dish, something she felt comfortable with. But Mma, determined to impress Ella, decided to make fish stew, a dish she had never cooked before. As the other wives arrived, they headed to the kitchen to begin preparing their meals. Ella was making jollof rice, another wife was cooking egusi, and the third wife preparing a fresh salad. Mma, meanwhile, had her eyes set on chatting with Ella rather than focusing on the food. She barely paid attention to the stew, chatting away about fashion, parties, and trying to make herself seem important in front of the other wives, while the other women chopped, stirred, and cooked with care. Emma glumly threw ingredients into the pot, not bothering to follow any recipe or pay attention to the fish she was using. She didn't bother to scale the fish or clean out its insides. She added far too much salt, a strange mix of spices, and even a handful of baking powder, believing it would somehow make the stew better. As for the scent leaves, she tossed in far too many, overempowering the stew with an intense, strange aroma. Despite her lack of focus, Mma felt confident that her dish would impress everyone. She was too busy engaging Ella in conversation, laughing and trying to seem as sophisticated as possible. When the food was finally ready, each wife proudly brought out their dish. The table was set, and the men were eager to taste the meals. Daniel smiled, hoping that Mma's contribution would go well, even though he had his doubts after the Egusi soup incident. The moment everyone sat down to eat, the disaster began. Ella's jollof rice was praised, perfectly seasoned, moist, and delicious. The egusi soup prepared by another wife was also a hint, rich and flavorful. But when it's time for Mma's fish stew, the mood shifted. Mark, the governor's son, was the first to test it. As soon as the spoon touched his lips, his face twisted in shock. He tried to hold back his reaction, but the look of horror was unmistakable. He quickly set his spoon down and reached for the glass of water, choking out of polite. It's different. Daniel took a spoonful, and his face instantly fell. He couldn't believe what he was tasting. The stew was an absolute disaster. It was far too salty, with an odd sweetness from the baking powder, and the overwhelming scent of the leaves made it almost inedible. To make matter worse, Mma hadn't removed the fish scale or cleaned the inside, or so the stew had a gritty, unpleasant texture. The other guests tried to be polite, but one by one they stopped eating. The awkwardness in the room grew, and Daniel could feel the embarrassment rising in his chest. This wasn't just about bad cooking, it was about the fact that Mma had refused to learn, despite all the opportunity and help offered to her. Uma, realizing that no one was eating her stew, looked around the table in confusion. Is something wrong? She asked, genuinely unaware of how bad the situation was. One of the wives, trying to spare Mma's feelings, said, maybe the fish just needs more cleaning next time. But Mark, who had grown tired of pretending, leaned back in his chair and said bluntly, this is inedible. I'm sorry, but you can't serve this to anyone. The silence that followed was unbearable. Mma's face turned red with embarrassment. For the first time in a long time, she felt humiliated. She had always been the one looking down on others, but now she was the one being judged, and harshly. Worse still, one of the wives secretly took a picture of Mma's stew and posted it on social media, joking about the disaster. The post went viral within hours. The chill and eat was ruined. The rest of the evening was awkward and tense. And Daniel was deeply embarrassed. He had begged Emma for months to take cooking classes or even learn a few basic dishes, but she had always refused. Now, her pride had led to public humiliation. And the event that was supposed to strengthen their marriage only widened the rift between them. The next day, Mma's failure fish stew was all over social media. People mocked her, calling her a sportswoman who couldn't even cook a simple dish. Mma's friends avoided her, embarrassed by the whole incident. She couldn't go out in public without feeling ashamed. And Daniel, though he tried to be supportive, couldn't hide his disappointment. Their marriage was now on shaky ground. Mma refused to cook again after the disaster, and she began acting more distant and nonchalant, as if nothing had happened. Daniel, on the other hand, couldn't forget the humiliation he had faced in front of his friends, especially with the whole town talking about it. The cracks in their relationship were deepening, and neither of them knew how to fix it. After the disastrous chill and eat party, the event had gone viral, and everywhere she turned, people were talking about her failed attempt at cooking. Social media was flooded with posts mocking her fish stew, with people calling her the monster fish lady because of the baking powder and strange mix of ingredients she used. It was a never-ending embarrassment. Mma tried to act like it didn't bother her, but inside she was crumbling. She couldn't face her friends, who had quietly distanced themselves from her. Every time she saw a post about the event, her heart sank a little more. The very thing she had always been proud of, her social standard, was now in ruins. Daniel, too, was deeply affected. The tension between them grew unbearable. He had given Mma so many chances, but her refusal to change, her pride, and her arrogance were pushing him away. He had thought that, over time, she would at least try to learn and improve, but instead, she had dug her heels in even further. Daniel could feel the love he had for her fading, replacing by frustration and disappointment. Mma, on the other hand, was furious with Daniel. In her mind, the blame fell squarely on him. She didn't see how her refusal to take responsibilities or her unwillingness to learn was the root of their problem. To Mma, Daniel had embarrassed her by inviting his friends to the chill and eat party in the first place. If he had just let her be, none of this would have happened. She acted coldly towards him, dismissing his attempt to talk about the situation or fix their marriage. One day, Daniel finally reached his breaking point. It had been months since the Chilan event happened, and things had only gotten worse between them. They hardly spoke, and when they did, it often ended in an argument. Mma's stubbornness had left no room for reconciliation. Mma, I can't keep doing this, Daniel said one evening, his voice weary. He had just come home from work and the house was quiet, as it had been for weeks. We are not happy. You refuse to even try and meet me halfway. I have begged you to take cooking classes. I have asked you to help with simple things around the house, but you won't. I don't think you even care about our marriage anymore. Mma, lounging on the couch as if his words meant nothing, scoffed. Oh, please, Daniel. You're always complaining. I told you from the start, I'm not a cook. I wasn't born to serve you. This isn't about serving me, Mma. Daniel's frustration boiled over. It's about partnership. It's about caring enough to put effort into something for the person you love. I don't care if you are not the best cook. I care that you don't even try. You don't care about this marriage. And I'm tired of pretending everything is fine when it's not. Mma rolled her eyes, refusing to engage in the conversation. If you want someone who cook for you, like a maid, then maybe you should go marry one. Daniel stared at her for a long moment, realizing that Mma had no intention of changing. She was too proud, too stuck in her ways. His heart sank. He had hoped things would get better, but it was clear they wouldn't. I want a divorce, Daniel. Finally, said, his voice heavy with sadness. Mma's head snapped up. For the first time, his words seemed to hit her. You want a divorce? Yes, Mma, he said, his voice firm. I can't keep living like this. You are not happy, and we are not even trying to fix it. I've tried for months, but you won't listen. This marriage isn't working. Mma sat in stern silence. She had never imagined that Daniel would actually leave her. In her mind, she has always been the one in control, the one who could decide what happened in their relationship. But now, Daniel was taking that control away from her. She felt her heart race with panic, but her pride wouldn't let her show it. Fine, she said coldly. If that is what you want, go ahead. I'll be better off without you. But deep down, Mma knew she didn't mean it. She didn't want any another failure, especially not after the public humiliation of her first divorce. She didn't want people to gossip about her being divorced twice. But her pride kept her from admitting that she cared, and she let Daniel leave without fighting for their marriage. A few weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Mma's parents were furious, not with her, but with Daniel. Once again, they cuddled and pampered her, insisting that it wasn't her fault. They blamed Daniel for not being a good enough husband and told Emma that she deserved better. Her father, in his anger, even went as far as threatening Daniel, warning him to stay away from Mma forever. But none of it made Mma feel better. Her life once again was in shambles. She returned to her parents' mansion where she was welcomed with open arms, but this time the weight of two failed marriages began to crush her spirit. Her friends had all moved on and many of them were married with children, while she was stuck in a circle of pampering and pride. She refused to admit it to anyone, but deep down, Mma knew she was the problem. She had pushed Kosi away, And now she had pushed Daniel away too. As the months turned into years, Mma fell into a deep frustration. She stopped going out to parties, embarrassed by the whispers that followed her everywhere she went. She became more isolated, spending her days indoors, scrolling through social media and watching all her friends' lives blossomed while hers withered. Her parents, blind to the real issues, continued to pamper her. They introduced her to suitors, but no one was interested. Words had spread about Mma's arrogancy and her refusal to cook or take responsibilities for her actions. Potential suitors didn't want to marry someone who was so set in her ways. Mma was no longer the desirable princess she had once been. By the time Mma turned 35, she was still single. Her frustration had turned into bitterness. All her friends were now happily married with children, while she was stuck living with her parents, still pampered like a spoilt child. The year has passed, and she had nothing to show for it. One afternoon, while feeling particularly down, Mma decided to go to a local restaurant called Ami's Foods, where she occasionally went to eat. It was a small, cozy place, and for once she wanted to get out of the house and do something different. Little did she know this visit would change her life forever. At the restaurant, she met Frank. Frank was different from anyone she had ever met. He was kind, gentle and humble. He wasn't wealthy, like Kosi or Daniel, but he had a good heart. They struck up a conversation, and Mma found herself laughing and talking with him in a way she hadn't done in years. Frank wasn't interested in her money or status. He genuinely liked her for who she was. As they continued to talk, Mma felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Meeting Frank at Amma's Foods felt like a breath of fresh air for Mma. He was unlike anyone she had been with before. Kind, humble and full of genuine warmth. He didn't care about her past or her social status. He was simple, interested in her as a person. For the first time in years, Mma felt seen. She didn't have to pretend or act like anyone she wasn't. After that first encounter, Mma found herself going back to Amma's food more often. Each time, Frank was there and they would sit together, talking for hours. It didn't take long before they were officially dating, and Mma felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time: happiness. But there was one major problem: Mma's parents. Mma's father had always been obsessed with finding her wealthy, influential suitors. After two failed marriages to wealthy men, her parents were still determined to find someone worthy of their daughter. When Mma told them about Frank, they were furious. An Uber driver? Her father thundered, his face turning red with rage. Mma, have you lost your mind? You're a princess and you deserve a prince, not someone who drives people around for a living. Her mother was equally mad. We have spent our entire lives giving you the best, and now you want to settle for someone who can't even provide for you? What will people say? But Mma wasn't the same woman she had been before. Her failed marriages, the public embarrassment, and the years of being pampered without any real growth has changed her. She was tired of living her life according to her parents' wishes. She has seen firsthand what that had brought her: two failed marriages, loneliness, and a life that felt empty. Frank is kind to me, Mma said firmly, standing her ground. He makes me happy, and that is what matters. I don't care what people say. I want to be with him. Her father refused to listen. You will not marry him. As long as you are under my roof, you will follow my rules. We'll find you someone better. But Mma had made up her mind. For the first time, she realized that she didn't need her parents' approval. She didn't want to live the rest of her life as a pampered princess with no control over her own choices. She wanted to make her own decisions, even if they went against everything her parents believe in. So one night, she did something she had never imagined herself doing. She eloped with Frank. Together, they packed their bags and left for Lagos, determined to start a new life, far away from the controlling grip of Mma's parents. It was a bold and risky decision, but for the first time in her life, Mma felt free. She wasn't running away in fear. She was running towards a new life, a life where she could be herself without the weight of her parents' expectations dragging her down. In Lagos, Ma and Frank got married in a small intimate ceremony with just a few close friends. There were no fancy decorations, no grand speeches, and no cameras. It was simple, but it was perfect for Mma. For once, she didn't need to impress anyone. She was marrying for love, not for status or wealth. After the wedding, they rented a modest apartment, and Frank continued working as an Uber driver. He also loved to cook and took pride in preparing meals for Mma. In the beginning, Mma still didn't cook much, but over time, things started to change. Frank never pressured her, but he made cooking fun. He invited her to help him in the kitchen, teaching her little tricks and tips along the way. Slowly but surely, Mma began to learn. At first, it was simple thing, cutting vegetable, stirring the pot, tasting the soup. But as time went on, she became more confident. She discovered that cooking wasn't as bad as she had always thought. In fact, she started to enjoy it. Frank was patient with her, always encouraging her and never criticized her mistakes. One day, Mma decided to surprise Frank by cooking an entire meal by herself. She spent the whole afternoon preparing, following every step of the recipes Frank had taught her. When Frank came home, the smell of food filled the air. He was stunned. "You cooked this?" he asked, a huge smile spreading across his face. Mma nodded shyly. "I wanted to do something special for you." Frank tasted the food and his eyes light up. "Ma, this is amazing. You have become a better cook than me." Mma laughed, but inside she felt a sense of pride she hadn't felt in years. She had done something she never thought she could do, and it felt good. From that day forward, Mma became more involved in the kitchen. She started experimenting with different recipes, learning new techniques, and perfecting her cooking skills. It wasn't long before her dishes became well known among their friends. People started coming over just to test her food, and Mma found herself enjoying the attention, not because of her looks or status, but because of something she had earned through hard work. Hi, besties. Thank you for watching this story. Tell me what to think about this story. Like this story. Share this story to someone who might be interested. Until I bring another interesting and educative part your way. Bye for now.